Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Comprehensive D&D 5e Guides, which someday I will actually have a good name for. But for right now, we're just gonna stick with that because it fits. If you do have an interesting name for this show that you don't mind me stealing from you, put it in the comments below. Um, First things first, you may notice something different. Like, I don't know. Uh, the sound quality has changed slightly, and I'm wearing headgear. Um, that's because um, I actually upgraded to an entirely new computer. Um, and with it came a lot of new things, including I went and I actually bought a brand new microphone, a new stand that actually clips onto my desk, a shock mount for it. It's fantastic, and it's back ordered. I still have my old cheap mic I have been using, and the mic stand is way back there. But the issue being, um, I don't actually have room for the mic stand because I'm keeping my CPU on the floor now instead of on the desk because it's massive, and I never really liked using the boom stand. I had a boom mic stand. It was a pain. It was an annoying. Um, so I'm not going to use that. I did get a new headset with the computer, and so that's what I'm going to use for this video. The new mic and everything should be here within a few days. I hope. Until then, you guys just have to deal with the headset that or the mic on this headset. The headset's great. I love it. Um, I just I've gotten used to having a mic, and so anyway. Remember how I said I wanted to film the Barbarian episode so I could talk about that unearthed arcana? Well, that's what I've got today. Now, this is going to be a little bit new because generally, uh, e- e- every one of these has all been about a single class, and this we're actually going to talk about a new um, primal path for the barbarian, and a new monastic tradition for the monk. So we're actually going to be covering two different classes here, or two subclasses of two different classes. It made sense in my head. Um, anyway, yeah, yeah. So we'll see how this works. I'd like to be able to do more unearthed arc kind of stuff, because a lot of the stuff in there is really cool. Um, but a lot of it requires me doing classes I haven't covered, and sometimes mixing classes. So we'll see how this goes. Let me know if you guys like it in the comments, or if you want me to stick to officially published materials instead. Um, so let's start off with the most recent class I did, the Barbarian. Um, this uh, unearthed arcana adds what's called the path of the wild soul. Sorry. Um, so let's kind of review what it is the barbarian does. Again, the barbarian is built on the idea of they can do a lot of damage, and they can take a lot of damage, and their rage mechanic is kind of their primary way of dealing with that, along with their unarmored defense. Um, and they tend to be very strength based, with also a high focus on constitution. So that's, barbarian in a nutshell. Uh, Lots of strength, lots of con. They hit things and they take hits. So anything in this subclass should augment one aspect of that, and that's where I really feel this primal path. I don't think it quite hits the mark of really capitalizing on the core of the barbarian's skill set. Um, it does do some stuff to raging, and it adds some interesting mechanics, but they really massively change how this kind of barbarian would be played. And I'm not sure it fits really well with the class. I think this might be better a fit in a different class, but let's go through everything. So, Path of the Wild Soul is basically adding a little bit of the wild magic sorcerer's origin to the barbarian. So you get to add a little magic to your barbarian, which I think is a really cool idea. The idea that the bar barbarian can have some magical ability. The way they did it here is a little weird. But we'll damn it. Sorry, I just spilled some stuff because of my crazy hands. I'll push that in so I don't spill more on it. More on. All right. So first thing they get at third level when they take this path, they get two things: lingering magic and wild surge. Lingering magic is they can cast detect magic for free, um, and they're limited to casting it uh, equal to a number of times equal to their con modifier, and regain everything on a short rest. So that's not really that big a deal, and it does kind of fit into this kind of blessed by magic barbarian archetype. To detect magic is literally kind of like magic goggles, where things that are magic glow, kind of. So it's a cool spell. It doesn't really fit into the idea we talked about barbarian thus far. They take damage, they do damage, and they're built on rage. Um, yes, but barbarians can have outside of combat usefulness, but generally that comes a lot more from their background than it does from their core barbarian status. Even the out of combat abilities of the barbarian tend to be a little more aggressive focused. So it's a interesting idea. It does give this barbarian a very unique place to fill in a party. Um, the thing that really changes things is wild surge. Um, Wild surge basically means every time you rage, you have a wild magic table, very similar to the wild magic sorcerer, but instead of a massive table with like 50 things on it, there's only eight. You roll a d8, and one of these things happen, and none of them are bad. That's the thing with wild magic sorcerers are built on the idea that random things happen, and they're a very improvisational class. Um, when they roll on the wild magic table, good things can happen, but bad things can happen. Things in the things that are kind of neutral can happen, and they kind of have to go on the fly with that and see what they can do. Nothing on the Wild Surge table is bad necessarily. They have one where um, if you roll a one, necrotic energy bursts out and hits everything within 30 feet of you. Um, you do 1d10 necrotic damage, no save to reduce, and the barbarian gets temp hit points equal to the sum of the necrotic damage dealt to all creatures. Now, because it says creatures, that means if you have a bunch of party members around, they're going to get hit. But a D10, even at third level, is not a lot of damage for one person. However, if there's, two allies and maybe three enemies near enough to you, you might only do, let's say 5 damage right in the middle. You do 5 damage. Well, they can all take 5 damage, but you just got 25 to 10 pin points. That's at level 3. That's easily over half your hit points that you just get, and that's just for raging. And you take half damage while you're raging. That's a really powerful ability. And as you go down this, I'm not going to list every single one. That's kind of the theme I see is a lot of these are really powerful, especially at low levels. But even when you get to high levels, they're still really good. The second one, you teleport up to 20 feet. So you get to choose to teleport. You don't randomly do it. And until the rage ends, you get to blink whenever you want. That's unbelievably useful. 3 is you shoot out a bunch of spirits that explode. 4, you get extra AC, and anyone that attacks you takes force damage equal to your con mod. 5 makes plants grow, and everything within 10 feet of you is difficult terrain. 6 basically makes everyone within 30 feet make a wisdom save, and if they fail, they have disadvantage on their next attack roll. Um, 7 is really cool. It basically lets any weapon you're holding turns into a light thrown weapon. Um, and if you throw it, it teleports back into your hands. This is crazy powerful. You can have a great axe that you hurl, it teleports back to your hand. You hurl it again, and it stays that way until the end of your rage, um, which is generally the whole fight. If you're going through a fight that's lasting longer than to 10 rounds, that's a pretty epic fight. And then eighth is you shoot a beam of light, 5 foot wide, 60 foot long, and it does damage in blinds. These are all really good. And like I said, at third level, these are massive. When you get up, even when you get up to high levels, things like this 7, where you get a teleporting weapon that you can throw no matter what it is, that's game changing. Like that's massive. And that's just their third level of ability. Now, that does fit in with the core features of the barbarian. This just seems really overpowered. And again, the whole idea, the reason they call it the wild soul, is it's supposed to be like a barbarian form of wild magic, but there's no bad sides to it. Again, the wild magic and sorcerers, there's always a question of whether or not you should do it, because it could end horribly for you, or it could go really well. That's the gamble. This, it's always going to be helpful for you, I guess is what I'm saying. When you get to sixth level, you get magic reserves. This one I feel is the most out of character for this class. Basically, as an action, you can go up and touch someone. They either regain a spell slot. You roll a d4. They can either regain a spell slot equal to the level you rolled. So if you roll a 4, they can get a fourth level spell slot. Um, or if they don't do spell slots, they regain or they get temporary hit points equal to um, 5 times what you roll. So if you rolled a 4, they'd get 20 temporary hit points. And when you do this, you take force damage equal to 5 times the number rolled. Um, so, and once you get to 14th level, it goes from a D4 to a D6. So this is um, weird. It's a heal for a barbarian, which doesn't fit in anything they do. Um, because again, they do damage and they take damage and they use their rage. This doesn't require your rage. It doesn't do damage directly, and it doesn't help you take damage other than uh, it hurts you. And since it's force damage, you can't lessen it. Um, so yeah, it kind of makes a pseudo healer kind of thing. Turns the barbarian into more of a support, and you have to sacrifice 2 of your attacks to do that. Again, it's a very barbarian thing, and it just doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't feel like it fits. But again, this entire subclass is really built on the idea of changing drastically how a barbarian plays. So I guess that kind of fits into that. Um, 10th level is called Arcane Rebuke. Basically, whenever a creature forces you to make a saving throw while you're raging, you can use your reaction to deal 3d6 force damage. Uh, this fits the barbarian really well because again, one of the most effective ways to deal with a barbarian, since they take half damage while they're raging to all basically all physical damage, is you nuke them with spells. With this, anytime you hit them with a spell, you're going to take damage. And for spellcasters, that's doubly bad. First of all, generally, they're not going to have a lot of hit points. So that's going to hurt. 3d6 at level 10 is not a ton of damage, but it's enough. Um, that's on average, it's going to be around 9 to 12 damage. So yeah, that's a decent amount of damage for just a reaction. The other thing that hurts is uh damage causes concentration checks, and especially for fifth edition, concentration is a massive limiting factor for casters. Most of their most useful spells require concentration. Um, and so, with the idea that if they're concentrating on anything, attacking, even just attacking, making an area attack where the barbarian is in the area is going to cause them to make a concentration check, which there's always a chance they could fail. So this is really cool. But balance wise, again, it's 10th level and it's only 3d6 damage. I don't, that's not nearly as overpowered as the level 3 stuff. And I like the idea, again, with this kind of magical barbarian, the idea of being able to send like a feedback pulse across the weave is cool. And I think it fits. Um, and then 14th level is chaotic fury, and this is the last thing that, in my opinion, just breaks the class. But basically, while you're raging, as a bonus action, you can re-roll on the Wild Surge table, replacing your current effect with the new one. Um, that's a big deal, because if you get like the one where it's necrotic energy burst from you, um, yeah, you'd lose your temporary hit points, but you've already done the damage, um, and you could do more damage every turn by just rolling. Or you could basically use this ability to just keep re-rolling until you get the one you want. And that, to me, that kind of removes the randomness from the Wild Surge, which is a cornerstone of wild magic, is just the unpredictability of it. This, there's only eight choices. You have a 1 in 8 chance every time you roll to get the one you want. Um, and there's quite a few that are just single actions. So if you keep rolling like 1 in 8, you're just doing extra damage for your bonus action, which you don't really have a use for, other than maybe doing an offhanded attack if you're dual wielding barbarian. But the fact that you get that throwing thing, it almost makes more sense to always be using a two-handed weapon with this, because you can turn that into a two-handed throwing weapon, which is overpowered. Um, so yeah, that's the path of the wild soul. Like I said, to me, it doesn't really fit the barbarian completely. There's some awkwardness in it, especially that level 6 ability, um, and the level 3 ability and the 14th level ability. I think are really overpowered. This would not be something I personally would allow at my table unless we made some major changes. Um, all right, so the monastic tradition. We're going to shift over to the monk. It's been a while since I spoke about the monk. So to kind of review how the monk works, monks. My favorite term is monks do crazy monk shit, and that's kind of defined by. They have unarmed attacks, which generally unarmed attacks and monk weapons are kind of the defining feature of the class, meaning they don't need a weapon to do damage, and the higher their level, the more damage they do. And then this, to go with that, key is their big thing. They use their key to control the action economy, and that's really where the monk shines, is controlling the action economy, taking away actions from the enemy using things like stunning strike, um, having the enemy waste actions on them using um, things like patient defense, all that kind of stuff. That's how the monk works, and they're hyper mobile. Um, so that's it. Hypermobile. They punch things a lot, and key is useful. So way of the astral self is really interesting. The idea of it is they basically is think of it as your inner self. They learn to unleash their inner self, or how they see themselves in their mind. And to be honest, and we'll go into the specifics of it in just a second here. I like the idea of this, a very kind of spiritual kind of monk, almost borderline psychic, but not really. I like that idea. I think it creates a really interesting um, role playing opportunity for it. However, just like the other one, this one has some bite to it that I think unbalances it. Um, so the first thing that you get is arms of the astral self. On your turn, you can spend 2 key points as a bonus action, and it summons the arms of your astral self for 10 minutes. But basically, it gives you a second set of arms that can do a lot. It costs 2 key points, so at level 3, uh, that is most of your key pool. You only have 3 key points. As you get higher level, 2 key points is nothing. And with the massive amount of things these things can do, they get dangerous real quick. So first things first, you can use your wisdom modifier in place of strength when making strength checks and saving throws. All of this is while the arms are conjured for that 10 minutes. Um, I love that. I hate the fact that my monk that I play can't grapple people. Um, Up until the point where he can just walk on vertical surfaces, he can't really climb that well because my strength score is pretty low. It's a dump stat for monks, or it can be a dump stat for monks. Their dex and wisdom, and I hate the idea that just because you're dexterous means that you can't grapple people. Even fighting martial arts styles like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it's not really about your strength. Strength helps in Brazilian jiu-jitsu or judo or any other grappling style like Kido. Strength is useful, but control and leverage is a lot more useful. Um, and that's the dexterity and thought process more than anything else. So I like the idea that you can use your wisdom to do things that real martial arts do, like grapple people and throw people and things like that. That's part of martial arts. Even I took Taekwondo for 2 years with this sensei, and then continued studying on my own. And uh, one of the things we learned was grappling and throwing, and taekwondo is almost entirely kicking based. So even in a martial art that focuses heavily on strikes, you will still learn grappling. So I like that. The next part of it, the arms are monk weapons. Makes sense. They have a reach of 10 feet. Okay. They do either radiant or necrotic damage, your choice. Okay, that's starting to get to that point of, oh, okay, this is getting a little bit powerful. There are very few creatures that have radiant resistance, a few more that have necrotic resistance, but there's tons of creatures that have resistance to physical damage. So this is a level 3 character that now has magic weapons that do difficult to block the damage. So that's little a little strange, but not horrible. A little unbalancing, I mean. The other thing, you can use your wisdom modifier instead of your strength or dex for attack and damage rolls. That is a game changer. Wisdom modifier is what you use for all your save, or what gives you your save DC for monks. It's really useful, especially if you do stunning a lot. So this basically means you can focus entirely on maxing your wisdom and not have to worry about losing out on the damage. With a normal monk, you need to raise your dex and wisdom kind of evenly, because dex gives you the defense just like wisdom does, but dex also increases your attack damage. Wisdom makes your attacks hit more often when you're doing key based stuff. This throws dexterity away. It is simply there for your armor class. Again, I think having to choose between the dex and wisdom is a good balancing feature for the monk. Um, I'm not particularly fond of just throwing the decks out the window and letting you just focus on wisdom, but I think it's cool. This is where it starts getting overpowered. Is now it's a one stat class. You just need wisdom for everything. Um, The next bullet point is really what changes this. Immediately after you use the attack action with your astral arms on your turn, you can make one extra attack with your astral arms as a bonus action. That's basically the same thing as their martial arts. If you use monk weapons or unarmed strikes, you can make an extra attack as a bonus action, or you can do flurry of blows to make two extra attacks. This is basic monk stuff. However, the number of extra attacks gets higher. Um, at 11th level, you get two extra attacks. At 17th level, you get three extra attacks. So that creates an issue with the monk. As they get higher levels, their martial arts die gets higher. By the time they're level 11, that's a D8. That's basically like dual wielding longswords, which normally takes a feat. They can do that for free now. They can make four attacks per turn for free as long as they spend two key points for 10 minutes, which means you're never going to have a battle that lasts 10 minutes. That's 60 rounds. It's never going to happen. So that means every fight, just two key points, and you can make more attacks than a fighter. Because fighters don't get their fourth attack until I believe it's like 19th or 20th level. So you now outclass fighters in the damage because you can do more because you're at a D8 and you'll get a D10 pretty soon. Um, so yeah, that makes it really powerful. And then it's 17th level, you actually make more attacks than any other class. Um, and because monks have all those abilities but built into their strikes, this makes this version of the monk deadly. They can do stunning strike five times a turn, meaning there's a good chance you're going to fail at least one of those. So they become stun locking kings, and just need a short rest to get all of it back between fights. Um, so that's just their third level of ability. Next, it's sixth level. You get Visage of the Astral Self. On your turn, you can spend one key point as a bonus action or as part of summoning your astral arms to summon this visage for 10 minutes. So now, instead of just having extra arms, you now have a mask that appears. And while it's summoned, you have advantage on wisdom, insight, and charisma checks. And you can see normally in the darkness, both magical and non-magical, to a distance of 120 feet. That is a really big thing. Advantage on insight and intimidation is cool, and it makes sense. You just created this astral mask over your face. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit scary and read people's minds. Cool, that fits with the class. Astral sight is a big deal. Magical darkness is a limiting factor for most characters. Um, there's only a few ways you get to see in magical darknesses. One of them is a eldritch thing for warlocks, where they have to give up one of these other eldritch invocations for this site. And they're in the Adventures League. There's actually a really popular build for a monk, which was to take two levels in Warlock to get that invocation, and then go Shadow Monk. And Shadow Monks at third level get the ability to cast the darkness using key points. And what you do is you cast the darkness on like a pebble or something, and hold it with you while you go around, and you could see in the darkness, but nothing else could. So you were not only effectively invisible because nothing had line of sight on you, but that also meant you could blind whomever you wanted. Now, as you get to higher levels, there's a lot more true sight and things like that. So it gets less effective the higher you go. But that was something you could do right at level 5 without too much of a sacrifice. With this, you don't have to sacrifice anything. You just go with this, and you can't cast the darkness yourself, but it's a really common spell. You just need one other person in your party that can cast it, and you're set. You are a harbinger of shadowy death. Um, and you get all those extra attacks and all this. So yeah. Um, at 11th level, the same time you get those two attacks for free now. Um, you get awakening of the astral self, which means whenever you have both your arms and your visage um, summoned, you get extra benefits. So now remember, this is three key points. At 11th level, you have 11 key points you can spend that you get back on a short rest. So it's not an incredibly taxing thing, and you have all that stuff I already mentioned, plus this. When you take acid, cold, fire, lightning, or force damage, you can use your reaction to deflect it. This is literally just to deflect missiles, which is just a regular monk skill, but it works on spells, basically. Um, that's a really big deal. Monks generally aren't going to take damage from um, missile weapons like arrows and that once they reach around like 10th level, because what it is you reduce the damage from a single attack um, by a D10 plus your wisdom modifier, um, plus your monk level for this. For to deflect missiles, it's dexterity instead of wisdom. It's the same basic principle though. um, so at 10th level, or in this case 11th level monk, you already have you're subtracting probably 16, since you'll probably have a maxed wisdom by 11th level. So you're already taking off 16 plus a d10 in a single shot. Most missiles are not going to hit you, or are not going to do enough damage to do anything. And then you with deflect missiles, you can throw it back. With this, you just reduce the damage. But again, this makes a really tough monk, and there's no key you have to do. It's just your reaction. So that's good. Empowered arms. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a target with your astral arms, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to your martial arts die. It can only happen once per turn, but that's a lot. That adds up. Again, the die eventually gets up. I can't remember if it's just a D10. I think it goes up to a D12 when you get really high. I might be wrong about that. Um, but you can just add an extra die of the damage once per turn. That's kind of similar to what rangers can do, but theirs is always a D8. It can never go higher than that. Monks, it will. So that adds a lot of damage to the monk. Um, and then the last thing you have is called Word of the Spirit. And this is, again, all at 11th level. Um, and when you speak through your visage, you can direct your words to a creature of your choice you can see within 30 feet of you, making it so only that creature can hear you. You can whisper over 30 feet in a crowded room, or you can amplify your voice so all creatures within 600 feet can hear you. You have your own amp or walkie-talkie, whatever you want. It's cool, and it can make a massive difference in the middle of a fight if you need to get information to someone. But it's not nearly as just crazy as the deflect energy or powered arms. Um, and then 17th level is where the class or subclass just breaks completely. Starting at 17th level, your connection to your astral self is complete, allowing you to summon it entirely. On your turn, you can spend 10 key points as a bonus action to summon the arms, the visage, and the body of your astral self for 10 minutes. So just to digest this, you can spend 3 key points for the arms and the face, or 10, which is 7 more for the arms, the face, and the body. It's a big jump, but it's 17th level. That still gives you 7 key points to do whatever with. Um, and we'll talk about the other things that makes this bogus. Um, it covers your body like armor. That's all just flavor text. These are the 3 things you get. Armor of the spirit, you get a +2 bonus to AC while you aren't incapacitated. So as long as you have this, your AC is bumped up by 2. At 17, you've probably maxed out both your dex and wisdom, and probably have at least 1 feat. Um, so your base armor class is 20. This brings you up to a 22, which is basically like heavy armor, but you can run up walls and stuff like that. So that's pretty powerful. Second thing, whenever you use the extra attack feature to attack twice, you can instead attack 3 times using your astral arms. So now, with the astral arms, they can use a bonus action to attack 3 times at level 17, and their regular attack action does 3 attacks. That's 6 attacks per turn, doing 6d. I want to say it's d12 at this point. 6d12 damage every round for an entire combat, and it only costs you 10 key points. Um, and the next thing is called key consumption. When a creature within 10 feet of you is reduced to 0 hit points, you don't have to kill them. They just have to be within 10 feet of you. You can use your reaction to regain key points equal to your wisdom modifier, which is again probably 5 by level 17. Especially with this, where you don't need dex, you probably had 20 wisdom by level 8. So all it takes in a battle is for 2 people to be not knocked out per battle, and this is a free ability. That's massive. Again, key should be a limiting factor for the monk. That's how it's designed. This takes the limiting factor away completely. You can just regain crazy amounts of key points and just blow through it. Um, uh, as much as you want. There's no reason not to. Now, again, it does take your reaction. Um, so there is that choice of, do I want to use this reaction for um, an opportunity attack to deflect something, or to get key back. But because key is such an integral part of the monk, there isn't much of a choice there. Like I've said before, any option in a game like this should give you a choice. But when one option is so much more useful or more powerful than the other 2 choices, it's not really a choice that at that point. In order to really play the character well, um, you have to make that choice. And to me, that's just bad game design. And that's what this is. Key consumption, anytime you can use it, you have to use it. Key is so integral to uh, the, the, um, monk, that you need to. And if you can combine this with like empty self, where you get greater visibility, and then have your astral self appear, like you take half damage from everything. Nothing can see you. You make 6 attacks per turn. You can add an extra die of damage once per turn. And anytime somebody goes to 0, you can use your reaction to gain your key back. Like this monk would waste the battlefield. He would be unbelievably hard to take down, because he combines, I mean, the best parts of a fighter, a little bit of barbarian. He gets a little bit of magical ability through his key. Like he is just nigh unstoppable. Um, so, like I said, I like the idea of the way of the astral self. This is massively overpowered, even more so than the barbarian we just talked about. This is so overpowered that this guy could give spellcasters a run for their money as far as the damage output, um, which is insane. Um, Even in fifth edition, where balance is a little bit better than most, spellcasters in general are going to be able to outclass most non-spellcasters. Um, and half casters, once you get to the high levels, like above like 13. Spellcaster just crazy, just in raw damage output. Now when you factor in other things, yeah, they're not as OP as people think, but this is OP. So anyway, uh, hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below. In addition to all the other stuff I asked, is there something maybe old unearthed arcana you'd like me to do, or something from the DM's Guild? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts on these? Do you find them interesting? Do you think there's overpowered as I do? Let me know. Anyway, that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. All right? Bye bye.